19th of March 2025. As per usual, if I could just ask you all to remain muted when not speaking. If you wish to come in on any item, if you could raise your virtual hand, and if that's not working, your physical hand. And just to remind you that the meeting will be recorded. We have got apologies this morning, I believe, from Councillor Steve Hunt, and welcome Councillor Wyndham Griffiths, who's joined us today. I believe we've also had apologies from Professor Paul Boyle, Swansea University, and Martin Nichols, Chief Executive of Swansea Council. Are there any other apologies for this morning? No?
I haven't received any others, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. We'll move then to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations that members wish to make today? Okay, don't see any hands up there. So we'll move to the minutes of the previous meetings. We've got two sets of minutes today. We've got the 3rd of December minutes. They are on pages 3 to 10 of your agenda. So I'll take them individually. And then we've got the 21st of January 2025, and they're on pages 11 to 19. So I'll go back to the 3rd of December first. Are there any matters arising from those minutes? Any corrections anybody wishes to make? If not, I'm happy to move them as a true record. Could I ask for a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, John. Are we all in agreement with those minutes? If you could show. Thank you very much. We'll move then to the 21st of January 2025. Again, I'll just stop if anybody's got any amendments or corrections. If not, again, happy to move the minutes. Could I ask for a seconder, please?
Happy to second again, Chair.
Thank you, John. And can I again ask if we all agree, please? Thank you very much. Those minutes are agreed. So we'll move to item 4, Corporate Plan 2023 to 2028, and the priorities for 2025-2026. They're on pages 21 to 142 of your agenda. And I'll go to Christy first, please, to introduce the item.
Can I, Chair, sorry, it's Wendy Walters here. Can I just refer to Craig Griffiths, our monitoring officer, in the first instance?
Apologies.
It's just to update on a letter we've received from the Chair of Scrutiny, and then we can proceed thereafter.
Okay, yeah, over to Craig. Craig?
Great, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Wendy. So, as members will be aware, we've received a letter from the Chair of our Overview and Scrutiny Committee with regards to this item. So, when members considered this report last week, they expressed some concern at the wording that's been used throughout the plan. There's a statement specifically on page 90 of your report specifically that says which members understand has materialised from the public consultation back in 2024, which effectively references the need to ensure balanced and proportionality towards achieving net zero without impacting the economy. So this was something that was raised in the public consultation in response to our wellbeing objectives, not something that officers have put forward in their own right. There's also a second statement which outlines that net zero needs to be proportionate to the locality without impacting the local economy and adding to impoverishment. Scrutiny felt that these statements were contrary to the huge opportunities for local and regional economic benefits from green industries, feeling that the statements perhaps disregarded the recognition of the quality of life improvements that net zero could ultimately bring. We've been looking at this ultimately now from an officer perspective and obviously taking on board the views that the Scrutiny Committee had, and we were wondering whether we should suggest ultimately a slight change to what is included in the papers in this regard, so we make it clear that actually these statements were what ultimately came out of the public consultation, and what we do as a CJC is actually look at all issues by way of our own integrated impact assessment, which ensures that we encapsulate every single potential impact when we are considering the proposals ultimately which we are taking through. So what I would suggest, Chair, is we could make a slight change to the actual corporate plan action plan here on page 90 on the 2 net zero bullet points, which say the public have commented the need to ensure balance and proportionality towards achieving net zero and to deliver positive impacts to the economy, and that net zero targets need to be proportionate to the locality without impacting the local economy and adding impoverishment. However, the CJC remains committed to net zero targets and will ensure that such matters are considered along with all other impacts as part of our integrated impact assessment. That way then we can make sure that we're reflecting the balance of what the CJC wants to take forward, while still reflecting the public comments that have been made. But what we've also picked up is that there are some sort of slight corresponding amendments that will also need to be made to the document to reflect this. So what I was going to suggest, Chair, if members are comfortable at the appropriate time, we could include an amendment to the recommendation to make that change, but also as well to ask for a delegated authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with yourself to make sure that we can tweak the terminology then to make sure that that fundamental point is echoed throughout the rest of the document.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. I think that's a helpful explanation and clarification there. I think, again, as you've referenced, they are public comments, so we have to accept them. But I think the proposed way forward you've outlined is one I think is sensible in the circumstances. Does any so thank you for that, Craig. So do we have a mover and a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Price, Darren?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm grateful for the officer input on this. I think it's important that we reflect on the comments by the Scrutiny Committee, and I'm sure we'd all agree that we've got high ambitions in terms of the net zero agenda in South West Wales. You know, it's a key element of our growth agenda in terms of economic development. You know, when we look at some of the interventions that we're working on in the region in terms of homes as power stations, the retrofit, you know, the Celtic Freeport, the lagoon down in Swansea, Chair. So, you know, we've got lots of ambition in this area which can deliver economic growth and economic benefit. So I think it's important that we reflect that fully in the response. And I think that the amendment, as has been suggested by Craig there, is a sensible one, and I'm happy to move formally, Chair. Diolch.
Thank you very much, Darren. Could I ask for a seconder, please?
Happy to second again, Chair, and I'd just like to echo Darren's comments when we had a bit of email exchange going on yesterday afternoon on this particular point, and I think we do need to be mindful of the comments that are raised by the Scrutiny Chair, and the amendment put forward by Craig seems a very sensible way forward. So happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I absolutely agree. I think both made the right comments there. Craig, back to you.
I'm just wondering, Chair, would it be helpful just for sort of clarity for members if I just read the amendment ultimately that's being suggested so all members will know then ultimately what they're being asked to vote on?
Yes, certainly, please.
Great. So I would suggest then the amendment would be, it is recommended that members of South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee endorse the draft version 3 of the Corporate Plan 23-28, subject to: number 1, the 2 bullet points re net zero on page 90 be removed and substituted with: the public have commented the need to ensure balance and proportionality towards achieving net zero and to deliver positive impacts to the economy, and that net zero targets need to be proportionate to the locality without impacting the local economy and added impoverishment. However, the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee remains committed to net zero targets and will ensure that such matters are considered along with all other impacts as part of our integrated assessment process, and delegated authority be granted to the Chief Executive of the CJC in consultation with the Chair to update the corporate plan to ensure that paragraph 1 is reflected in the rest of the document.
Okay, quite a substantial amendment, but very clear in terms of its purpose. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. So I think we vote on the amendment first. I think it is the way, and then we have a further discussion on the report as amended. Okay, so all those in favour of the amendment, please show. Okay, thank you very much. That is carried. Okay, so we now have an amended report with an amended set of recommendations. Are there any comments, questions on the report, members, or any would like to make? If not, I'm going to go back then to Christy. Do you want to take us through the report, Christy?
Good morning, Chair. As you recall, members will have read papers in January for both the corporate priorities for 25-26 and the proposed budget, which were both approved at committee on the 21st of January. The purpose really of what we're asking is to advise members of the draft version 3 of the corporate plan, which includes the corporate priorities for 25-26. Again, it's to be noted that the well-being objectives remain unchanged. It's the actions to deliver against them that have been reviewed and refined. The recommendation is that members consider the draft version 3 of the corporate plan 23-28 for approval. Again, noting the wellbeing objectives remain unchanged. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christy. Any questions or comments for Christy on the report? If not, Craig, I can see your hands up. Come back to you.
Apologies, Chair. I think that is just a legacy hand on my part.
No problem then. Okay. So we've now got, we've had the report, an amended set of recommendations. Could I ask then for members to show if they are in favour of the amended report? Okay, thank you very much. That is approved. Thank you, colleagues. We'll move then to item 5, which is general progress on the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee 24-25, pages 143 to 158 of your agenda. And Christy, I'll come back to you again.
Well, thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to provide a progress update on the general performance of the CJC for the period of 24-25. You will note the annual return is not included within this report. It was included at CJC on the 12th of September 2024. The recommendations are that members note and endorse, approve the contents of the report as a general update really for CJC. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Christy. Any comments or questions to Christy on the update? No? Okay. Again, colleagues, if I'm happy to move that report, could I ask for a seconder, please? Okay, and we're all happy to receive the report. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, which is the prospectus outline programme for the Corporate Joint Committee in the prospectus working group, pages 159 to 164. Craig, I'll come to you on this item.
Great, thank you, Chair. So this is a report that's brought to all members today for information about some recent developments in the CJC world that have been happening at an all Wales level. So as CJCs are now approaching their 3rd anniversary, Welsh Government have looked to try and take forward a programme of work to look at what the work programmes of CJCs are, and obviously then how CJCs can ultimately develop in the future and to consolidate on the existing matters which are now in place. To enable them to do that, they've brought together a working group of officers from both local authorities, corporate joint committees, Welsh Local Government Association and Welsh Government to look at ways ultimately in which we can look to develop the CJC programme going forward, with the intention being that they will create what they call a prospectus, which not only will clarify the minimum expectations of CJCs, but will set up what they're calling a menu of options for future decision-making responsibilities to be delegated to the CJC organisations. Still very much is infancy at the moment, but this is a work programme they're looking to develop with the aim that a prospectus will be agreed by ministers probably at some point in the early part of the summer. What they're effectively looking to do is recognising that not all CJCs are in the same position and there is no one-size-fits-all approach, but looking to see how they can explore ambitions and then ways ultimately for other powers to be delegated to the CJC organisations as a way then of trying to improve on efficiencies within the region in respect of some of those areas. This prospectus, their aiming is going to be concise and will bring together a number of different aspects, but again at this stage we don't really know what that detail is ultimately going to be. Of the working groups then that had been comprised, and the representatives from this region are myself and Ainsley, our Director of Environment from Carmarthenshire Council, and we've been attending the various meetings, and the intention will be we'll feed back any of the views that come forward after those meetings over the course of the next couple of weeks, months, and if there is a prospectus ultimately is going to be created, it will be brought back then to the CJC for us to do our official response. But on a positive note as well, we have received a letter from the Minister in the course of the last week that in order to support the delivery of the ambitions of the forthcoming CJC prospectus, they're going to be providing an additional sum of £200,000 in 25-26, 26-27 and 27-28 to be able to fulfil some of these functions. So we're still looking for the detail ultimately to come forward in respect of that, but there has been an indication there would be some additional funding made available as well. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. And I think just to highlight some of the points you've made there, I think it is good to see the Welsh Government acknowledging that not all of Wales wants to move at the same speed and that it won't be a one-size-fits-all. I think that's really important, that the different CJCs around Wales can move forward at different paces. No doubt some of that will be linked to future funding in due course. The £200,000 for the next 3 years is helpful, but of course it doesn't fund everything that we would want to do as a CJC, and we'll continue to make that point to ministers. I think the other thing, just on timescales, I think WLGA leaders met this week with the Cabinet Secretary for a discussion around this. I think it was a useful discussion. I think what we have to do now as local authority partners across Wales is be more specific with the Welsh Government about what it is we would like in terms of additional powers, funding, responsibilities, and why we believe that we would require those and what we would seek to achieve with them. So I think that's the next phase now, which is drilling down to be much more specific about the things that we would need to be effective in what we want to do. Clearly, there are ambitions, certainly South East Wales want to move faster, want to get greater control over economic development. That came out during the discussion. Other authorities may wish to go slightly slower and not wish to take on as much, but again, this flexible framework will hopefully allow that to happen. I think the aim in terms of timescales is to get this in place by the WLJ conference in the summer. So I think that's the ambition. Whether we'll make that deadline is another thing, but that's, I think, where certainly the ministers would like us to be. So yeah, I think it's helpful. Extra funding is always helpful. So yeah, we'll continue to make good progress. So I'll pause there, open it up for questions or comments. Yeah, Darren, Councillor Price, Darren.
Yeah, just ar y pwynt ni, Gadeirydd, cytuno bod y drafodaeth wythnos diwetha gyda'r gweinidog wedi bod yn led bositif yn y ffordd bod hi'n cydnabod bod angen hyblygrwydd ar draws y system, a dylen ni ddim fod yn fforso unrhyw rhanbarth i ddilifro os nag yw nhw'n awyddus i wneud ni. Ond wrth gwrs, y peth mwyaf sylfaenol yw bod unrhyw bwerau ychwanegol neu unrhyw ddyletswyddau newydd yn ychwanegu gwerth, a fi dyna'r cwestiwn mwyaf pwysig yn y drafodaeth yma i gyd. Ac fel ych chi'n sôn, mae yna gyfle dros y misoedd nesaf i fwydo mewn yn syniadau ni, a mae'n bwysig bod ni yn sicr mae'n bwysig bod ni'n neud ni, a bod ni'n glir yn meddwl yn hunain ble ni'n credu bod na werth ychwanegol os o gwbl yn y gwahanol feisydd. Ar y pwynt yr arian, mae hwnna'n rhywbeth i ni wedi bod yn sôn am dros y blynydde diwetha, a tra bod fi'n cydnabod y 200,000 ychwanegol oedd wedi cael ei ddatgan wythnos diwetha, a mae hynny yw croesawu wrth gwrs, fel o'ch chi'n sôn, dyw e ddim yn ddigon, a ni'n gwybod i fynd i'r afel a'r ddyletswyddau yn gyfan gwbl. Felly mae dal darn o waith ydy fi'n credu i sicrhau bod Llywodraeth Cymru yn deall beth yw effaith a goblygiadau y newidiadau yma ar lawr gwlad arno ni fel cynghorau sir. Ond eto, yn croesawu'r ffaith bod y drafodaeth yma'n digwydd, a gobeithio allwn ni chwarae rôl bwysig yn y drafodaeth ni dros y misoedd nesaf. Diolch.
Yeah, thank you for that, Darren. Yeah, absolutely. And I made the point, as you know, at the meeting, it's all very well having powers and responsibilities, but the funding has to follow in order for you to be able to deliver. John, Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, I'd echo what Darren says there, really, Chair. I mean, devolving powers down from Welsh Government to CJC is probably a good thing. I'd like to see more powers actually devolved directly to the local authorities and fundings going directly to local authorities as well on certain matters, but this is probably a step in the right direction. I think we need to keep the dialogue going, and as Darren says, it's all about funding and what we can take on, what we can achieve, what we can do, as opposed to, I suppose, powers being given to us without the requisite resource base to help us deliver. So in principle happy, but I think we need to get into a far more sort of detailed dialogue with Welsh Government over what they're suggesting and how we bring this forward. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, thank you, John. Are there any other comments or questions on this item? If not, again, thanks to the officers for the work they've done on this. We'll get further updates over the next month or so. So I'll ask colleagues, I'm happy to move the report. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Yeah, thank you, Darren. And again, all those in favour, if you could show, thank you. Thank you very much, that's agreed. We'll move then to item 7, which is Economic Wellbeing and Regional Development Subcommittee update. And welcome Ainsley to take us through this one, please.
Chair, we've got Simon Davis instead.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. Simon, welcome. Apologies.
No problem. Diolch cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the purpose this report is for information and aims to update and inform members of the Joint Committee about the progress and expenditure of the Shared Prosperity Fund, SPF, for Q3 of 2024. It outlines the responsibility of local governments in developing regional investment plans for SPF and sets out the basis of the programme being anchor projects, grant schemes and standalone projects. Of particular note is paragraph 2.9 on page 168 of the pack, setting out the provision of a transitional year for 25-26, and discussions continue between the Welsh Government and UK Government on the funding for beyond March 26. Work will need to be completed by December 2025 for that transitional year. The report highlights significant progress in regional performance outputs, including job creation, safeguarded jobs and grants awarded to organisations and enterprises. And Section 5 sets out the priorities for 25-26, and the South West Wales Joint Committee has approved a budget for 25-26 of circa 50,000 per year, with allocations for economic wellbeing and development and detailed actions to achieve wellbeing objectives. Diolch, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that, Simon. And again, this came up in the discussions with the First Minister this week in terms of the need to have certainty around SPF post its transitional year. We made it extremely clear to the First Minister the risks around that programme if people don't have certainty of what will follow. Obviously, some of that hinges on where the UK government gets to in terms of its comprehensive spending review, and then what it's able to confirm in terms of future funding for Wales and the future of SPF and potentially levelling up as well. So some unknowns at the moment that we're carrying, but we did make it clear, whilst we're grateful for the funding for the transitional year, we need certainty as quickly as possible, certainly before the autumn, so that we can plan from that point onwards. And, again, it's not just individual third sector or other grants that are going out. There are lots of core services that are delivered that are reliant on SPF, and that point was again made to the FM and Cabinet Secretary on I think it was Monday this week. So again, we had a good debate around that. But thank you for the report, Simon, and I'll open it up to colleagues for questions or comments. Yeah, Darren, Councillor Price.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thank you, Simon, for the update. As I say, this is a really important piece of work for us, really, in terms of what happens next. And I know we had the discussion with the First Minister and the Cabinet Secretary earlier this week. But I really do think that we need to impress on government, both in Cardiff and London, really, the importance of this funding. And as I suggested in the meeting with the First Minister earlier this week, I think we need to be making a pitch quite clear, quite firmly in terms of what we expect in terms of that level of funding, because there's quite a bit of discussion at the moment in terms of structures and the role of local government, within any new system. But for me, fundamentally, the pot of money that we have on an all Wales basis is going to be fundamental to what we can achieve over the next few years. And I know that many of us will have campaigned prior to the decision being taken to leave the European Union, around the importance of that European level of funding. We know that we've missed out massively over the past 5 years when we compare to the level of funding we were receiving under the EU structural funds. We know what the benefits were to West Wales and the valleys in particular, and our region, of course, was central to that. So I think we need to be making a pitch, really, for a return to that level of funding, because even though the transition year is welcome, and I absolutely accept that that is better than nothing, that again is a reduction in terms of what we had last year, from the UK government. So I would ask that we do engage with governments in both Cardiff and London, just to set out, really, from our perspective, what the impact would be if we were to return to those EU level of funds, Because at the moment, let's be blunt, over the next year, we are way off where we need to be in terms of the level of funding that we need to really support some of our most deprived communities. Diolch.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. And I try not to be political on this one, but I think you can't make this point without being slightly political. The reality is that the previous UK government deliberately removed need as one of the criteria in the formula post-EU, and they diverted funds away from areas of deprivation into areas with less deprivation. That was a decision they made, and it was against the advice that we gave them at the time. I actually go a little bit further than you, Darren, on this one, and I'm sure you'll support the point, which is I don't want a penny less than we had under the EU. I want more, because we've been through a period of high inflation since then, and we should actually be asking for more than we used to get, because were we to be still in the EU, we'd have been in a new round of funding with different allocations, and I think we really do need to hammer those points home. Disappointed, I got to say, in terms of the engagement so far on this topic from UK government. I understand the reason for it, because they are going through the comprehensive spending review, and I understand they're asking us to liaise through the Welsh government, but we need to have that tripartite arrangement and make sure that we get equal status in terms of their negotiations with Welsh government and UK government at the table. But points you made are well. I just hope we go further and we press that point home, that it's not just what we had when we left the EU, but a higher amount reflective of where we currently stand. Okay, I'll go next to Elwyn Evans. Elwyn.
Morning. Am I allowed to say I agree with absolutely everything you and Darren have said without it being at all political? But of course, just to add to that dynamic, the university sector has lost mega millions also because of the SPF structuring and the loss of the structuring funds from Europe. And undoubtedly, that's been one of the factors in impacting on university financial health and ability to deliver to their regions from an economic perspective as well. So just to add to it, there's the council element. There is also that research and innovation element that's been stripped out basically because of the changes. I know you'll be aware of that, but it is something that is very concerning also for the university sector.
Yeah, absolutely, Elwyn. And I think, one of the things we can do, I've written along with the Andrew Morgan chair of leader of the WLGA. I think we can supplement those with firm letters outlining all of the needs of the region. I would welcome all parties to join as signatories to that letter. And again, if there are, data elements that we can point to in terms of those reductions you've seen in the university sector, we've got our local government ones. I'm sure the voluntary and third sector have got theirs as well. We can lay all that out for both governments in terms of reminding them exactly where we stand currently and what we've lost. So we do need a bigger cake, don't we? That's the point. Dean next. Dean, do you want to come in?
Yeah, hi. I look at this from both an RLSP's perspective, but also as a private sector individual. And I echo what Elwyn said, is innovation is such a massive part of the economy. And the fact that R&D funding has been slashed in the private sector as well as in the education sector is there's pots of money that are dwindling across both private and public sector entities. I think what is interesting is the amount of revenue that is looking to come in from foreign governments into the UK economy. For instance, we as a business are moving into Hong Kong and Singapore, and the R&D setups over there are a lot stronger. So what's concerning to me from a skills angle is the fact that we are going to lose key skills to companies who are A, offshoring, but B, they're also looking at getting external investment from outside of the UK. So I think the R&D piece is really, really important, that we sort of put a little bit of emphasis on that, because, you know, insolvencies for tech-based businesses in the UK are up 39% quarter on quarter since last year. So there is an inherent problem there that I think we as CJCs need to sort of identify that in the highest amount of detail possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dean, and some very good points there. Look, colleagues, I think the request, if everybody's happy, we can craft a letter from our region, make sure we incorporate all of the points that have been raised today ahead of the comprehensive spending review. I think we've got an opportunity to do that now, to influence both governments in terms of the need to continue to support this. And then again, we will add in the points around equal representation at all tiers of government on the decisions made around the shared prosperity funding. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah. Okay, great stuff. Thank you, colleagues. Well, if there aren't any further comments, then this one is for information purposes only, but can I ask you if you can show if you're happy to receive the report? Okay, thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the agenda. I've not been notified of any urgent items for today, but if there are any, happy to take them.
Nope, there aren't any urgent items, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Chloe. With that then, thank you, colleagues. Good to see you all, and look forward to working and seeing you all.